Hi everyone, just want to share a goal with you that I've set for myself. I don't know about you, but I always have a big stack of business books or personal development books. Like, I never seem to get round to reading, and there's always more coming out that I really want to read. So I've made a goal and I've committed to myself that I am going to read a different business or personal development book every single month and do a blog about it. So by giving myself something to aim for, not only will I make sure I meet my goal of reading a different book every month, but I figure that by doing a blog, it's going to help me reflect and internalise what I'm reading and really making sure that I get value and learning from it. So that's my goal, a different business book every month, and hopefully by sharing the wisdom that I get from those books with you, you'll learn something, and who knows, maybe you'll read the same books as well. First up is Derren Brown's Happy, Why Everything is More or Less Absolutely Fine. I don't really know what made me choose this one, other than to say that it's been quite an interesting year for me. So I've had some highs, I've had some lows, and maybe the idea of a book on happiness really appealed to me. I also really like Derren Brown's other books as well, so that was probably a reason for picking the book up. So, does reading the book make you any happier? Well, I'm going to share with you some key things, some key learnings that I got from the book, share them with you, and I'll share with you my thoughts on whether or not it makes you any happier. So Derren starts the book by talking about the stories we tell ourselves, and those first few pages really resonated with me. So I strongly believe that if you were to pick up the book and just read those first few pages and the stories we tell ourselves, you would put down the book 10 times happier. Now, this is a central theme of the book. The idea is that it's not the events in life themselves which cause us the trouble, it's the meaning we attach to those events that causes us the difficulty. And from these meanings, we create stories or narratives, and we continue to tell ourselves these stories over and over. The stories that we tell are hugely significant. They can affect the way we feel, but also the decisions we make, the way we behave, and the quality of our life in general. Take, for example, two people who try something new for the first time and fail at it. Same experience, but one person might tell themselves, well, clearly I'm rubbish at this and I should just give up. Meanwhile, a second person might have the same experience but tell themselves that it's just a sign they need to work harder, they just haven't mastered it yet, and they're going to keep going. Two different people, same experience, but different meanings and different stories. Buddhists believe this has like a drip, drip, drip effect in our brain. So when we tell ourselves a story, it starts to drip into our consciousness, and the more we tell ourselves a particular story, it starts to carve a river, carving a flow, a pathway for our brains, until we start to begin to believe these stories as facts. And you can imagine that if we're telling ourselves a helpful or negative story, the impact that might have. And you can try this for yourself. If you think about something unpleasant that happened to you recently, think of all the possible stories that you could have told yourself about that event. What meaning did you take? What other possible meanings were there? List out as many as you can, and even entertain the ridiculous ones. I don't know, if somebody shouted at you, it might be, you could always tell yourself that because they fancied you or wanted to ask you out on a date. Might seem implausible, but just by trying out all those different stories on for size, we can begin to see the many different perspectives and start to wonder whether ours was the right version. And of course you can choose your story. So quite often it's not about changing the event or changing the past, it's simply our story we need to change. Another strong theme in the book is that of the self-help industry. Now, Derren's very critical of the self-help industry. In fact, in particular, he's very scathing about The Secret, which if you've ever seen the film or read the book, you'll know what I mean. And the reason why he's very scathing about the self-help industry is that he says it tells us that we are in control of our own destiny. So we're told you can do anything you set your mind to. If only you work hard enough, if you only want it badly enough, if only if you wish for it and tried it hard enough, you can achieve anything. And if you think about it, YouTube, Amazon, bookshops, all these video sites, they're full of success stories, internet millionaires telling us that we can emulate their success if only we want it badly enough. What Derren says about this, and one of the key things I got from the book, is it is true that when we work hard we're more likely to achieve what we want to achieve, but the point he makes is that whenever someone has been hugely successful, there's probably been a certain amount of luck involved in the process as well, because that's just life. Life does require us to work hard for things, but also life does chuck stuff at us and gives us certain circumstances or barriers that we are simply not in control of. So it's false to say that if only we work hard enough or want it enough, we'll achieve something. In reality, life can get in the way, and in the old days I suppose you would just call that fate. So that's the problem with self-help. It's always asking us to look on the horizon as opposed to living in the here and now, and it's asking us to assume responsibility and control for things that we may not be in control of. The problem with this is if things don't pan out, we may tend to blame ourselves and punish ourselves. We tell ourselves that we didn't work hard enough, we didn't want it enough, that we didn't believe in ourselves enough, or that we weren't good enough in general. And far from helping people gain confidence and self-worth, it can actually diminish it. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't take responsibility and drive things for ourselves. We should just have a healthy expectation that maybe life will get in the way. Now, some of my favourite sections of the book are the bits where Derren talks about space and time. Maybe it's because I'm a bit of a sci-fi fan or a Doctor Who fan, but I find these bits really interesting. Now, one of the things that arises out of this part of the book is Derren talks about the past and how to deal with that quite a lot. And then in it, there's an interesting thought exercise. And what he says is, if you think about all of your life, your entire existence, and imagine viewing it all at once. So if you take a step out of yourself and imagine seeing your whole timeline all in one sitting. So think like a timeline worm with a baby you at one end of it, with every different stage of your life right the way through to the end, with an elderly you at the other end. And imagine you can see everything in your life at once. Now, day to day, we only experience one very small cross-section of that timeline worm at any given time, and we're very focused on the here and now. But imagine if you could see all of it at once. How different would your problems look? Things that seem really pressing in the here and now, when we take that step back and see them in the grand scheme of our entire life, might look very different. I thought it was a really interesting way of looking at your life and putting our troubles and our dramas into context, and I found that really interesting. Derren also says some interesting stuff about the past as well. Now, when I was doing timeline therapy a few years back, when I did my NLP and my hypnotherapy, I was introduced to the idea that the past isn't real. Anything that's happened in the past has been and gone. We can't touch it anymore. It's not tangible. All that we're left with is the memory of the past. And memory is hugely unreliable, so again, we're really only left with the stories or the meaning we've taken from those events. And Derren has some good advice for people troubled by things in the past. He said, whatever the past is, has been and gone. If there are things that you need to face in the past because they refuse to let you go, realise at least they grip you, not because they control you, they no longer exist, but because of the narrative they've left with you. You can't change what happened, but you can gain a little distance from it by reassessing your story. And he also points out that if we fail to do this, even worse, we might choose how to live based almost entirely on a reaction against the way we've been treated by people, and thus hand over control of our life force to the transgressors of our past. So there's quite a bit there about not letting the past or other people control you and maintaining control of your own story. Now, one of the bits of the book that resonated with me most were the sections on career and work. Maybe it's because I'm self-employed, but I think there's something there for everybody in regards to this. Derren talks about the idea of the career story. So remember to talk about the stories that we have in our lives. The career story is one that he describes that is handed to us complete with the aims, the objectives, the challenges, the successes, the description of what will make us feel worthwhile and happy, already predetermined and written out for us and handed to us by parents and authority figures, he suggests as a result of their unlived lives. Of course, it meets their needs, but it doesn't meet our needs. And by the time we're old enough to realise this, we are normally in midlife, which means people have got careers, they've got mortgages, they've got children, and it just feels too risky and unsafe to change it. And the fact that this career story doesn't really meet our needs means that we end up sometimes depressed or anxious or ending up in therapy, or they're at least feeling a bit listless in life as a result of it. His suggestion is to dump the career story, and I think if there's one bit of advice I can give people, start challenging that story sooner rather than later. He also talks about work and describes how pre-enlightenment, work was just a means to an end. It was never supposed to be the end in itself. It was never supposed to be fulfilling. And these days that people think that there's something wrong with us if we're not fulfilled and utterly happy for the process as work. And he points out that in reality it's what we do in our leisure time that usually gives us our sense of purpose and work. The big takeaway here is that actually our work and what we do for a living isn't who we are. It doesn't mean anything. The salary that you have and the job that you have doesn't say anything about your worth as a person. Yet it's so easy for us to be bought into this, to feel that the money that we earn or the job that we do is the determiner of our worth. And it simply isn't. So if you've ever had a pay review that you weren't very happy with, or you've ever been asked to work for free, you'll know what I mean when I say work is very much tied in with this stuff. And Derren asked the question, which is, could we please just stop asking people what they do for a living and realise it for the unhelpful inquiry that it really is? And I definitely second that. Now, one of the bits about the book that didn't sit comfortably with me to begin with, but I've really come round to, is the bit about lowering your expectations. Now, this isn't about lowering your standards. We should still aim high, we should still do the best that we can do, and we should still set ourselves goals. It's just about acknowledging, as we were discussing earlier, that sometimes life gets in the way. Now, he talks about philosophy a lot, and he talks about a group of philosophers called the Stoics, and they had a qualification they would use when making plans, exceptio, which basically means unless it doesn't work out. So whenever they would make a plan or set a goal, they'd always qualify it with unless it doesn't work out. Now, this isn't setting the bar low, it's just setting your expectations in the right place and understanding that life gets in the way. Quite often the reason why we're unhappy with things is not because we didn't do well or we didn't work hard, but we didn't get the results we wanted. But that's not because we were doing the wrong things, it's more that we just had the wrong expectations in the first place. He tells the story of a friend who was let down by a contractor, and he points out, well, who said the contractor would turn up on time? Who promised you that they would be true to their word? Who says that when you call up a call centre they'll make a note in your file? And who's to say that even if they did, the next person would read it back out again? And even if they did read it back again, who's to say that some other mistake wouldn't happen? Sometimes we set our expectations in the wrong place, and this can be as much of a source of unhappiness as not doing the things that we know we ought to be doing. Now, this next one is one that I don't think I'm 100% bought into, but it really challenged my thinking of goal setting. So being a coach and doing training, I'm used to doing goal setting. And one of the suggestions of the book is that we should change the ways that we set goals and only set input goals. Now, the thinking of this is there's so much, as we've discussed, that you can't control. So the example is given that if you were to play a game of tennis, there is so many things that you're just not in control of. You can't control the weather, the court, the conditions. You can't control your opponent, how good they are, how much they've improved, and you don't know what they're going to do. So if you were to set yourself a goal of winning the tennis match, you're setting a goal based on criteria that you can't control all of it, and therefore if you were to lose, you were to blame yourself for things that are outside of your control and perhaps be needlessly hard on yourself. The suggestion is that we set our goals based on our input. So we only set the goal based on what we can control. So I'm in control of my performance, how much effort I put in, and all the things that I do. So the better goal might be to say, I will play the best game that I can play, or I will play to my potential. Now, setting goals the way that I have in the past, I'm not 100% comfortable with this, but I can definitely see some merit to not accepting or setting a goal which you're not completely in control of. Perhaps it is more realistic to set goals based on things you can control and perhaps you could reasonably influence, rather than aiming for the stars, not understanding that other things may get in the way. Now, this last tip for being happy is one that I think is really relevant in the modern age, and this is about curiosity, or seeking out bad things about yourself. Now, if you think back 10, 15 years ago, the internet it existed, but it wasn't what it was. We didn't have social media like we do now. And as a result, we just didn't know the bad things that people were saying about us. People were probably criticising us or slagging us off, but we had no idea what they were saying. And because we didn't know what they were saying, we couldn't get upset about it. These days you have social media, everybody's connected to pretty much everybody else 24/7, and we are more likely to come across information about us that we don't like. Furthermore, people actually proactively go looking for things, for critical comments about themselves, and people go on social media to see what other people are saying about them. The tip here is just don't go looking for that information. Don't go nosily inquiring to what other people are saying about you. If you don't know about it, you can't care about it. And when you didn't know about it, you're a lot happier. I think that's a great tip. I don't understand why you would go looking for that information, but definitely less curiosity, less information is actually a little bit better for our well-being. So has reading the book made me any happier? Well, actually, yeah, I think it has. I've had an emotional roller coaster of a year. I've had some really tragic things happen in my life, and I've had some really amazing things happen in my life. And a lot of the lessons that I've learned from the book have really helped me shape my thinking and have given me a sense of perspective. I think for me, it's helped me realise that sometimes life just does throw bad things at you, and that's not personal. We shouldn't take those things personally, and we shouldn't take the meaning that we're somehow cursed or that we should be depressed. We should just accept that life does somehow throw things at us. The idea that that nothing is permanent, that who said that things were going to work out the way we wanted to, this lowering of our expectations, far from being quite depressing, I found really useful. It's helped me understand that nothing is permanent, nothing is given, and therefore I should focus on being grateful for what I have, for the people that I have in my life while I have them. And I found that allows me to enjoy what I have even more than I did before. That sense of perspective, looking at your whole life all at once, has helped me to realise that things that seem bad, sometimes we do get them out of proportion. So it's helped me get my expectations in check, and it's helped me create a story for my life, for my year, the meaning that I extract of all things that are positive and helpful to me. And I know that repeating that story for my health is, for myself, is going to be more useful in the long run. So would I recommend the book? Yeah, I really would actually. I really like this one. At 528 pages, it's one hell of a read. I hate long books. It's actually really hard work as well. Derren talks about philosophy a lot, but this is supposed to be an antidote to self-help books, and therefore he's purposely tried to give it rigour. He's tried to be robust. It's really well referenced. In the back, he's referenced all the books that he's read, all the podcasts, all the sources, and I found that really valuable as well. Now, I know that it reads a bit like a university textbook, and I know that might put some people off. But think about all the things that we spend our time on in every given day, like social media or meaningless tasks, watching telly, box sets. If you're going to put time and effort and energy into anything, isn't a book on happiness something that might improve your perspective on happiness worth investing that time and energy into? I think so. I'll leave it up to you. If you have read the book, let me know what you think, and if you'd like to borrow it, give me a shout as well if I know you, and also share with me some of your favourite business or personal development books. I'd love to know what you think I should read next.